What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode from A House to a Home. I am your co-host, Matt
And I'm your
Gonzales.
other co host, Des Gonzalez. And it is our desire for a house to become a home because home is where your story begins.
Yes, and there is a universal ache in everybody's heart to have that home, that place where you go to discover who you were created to be, but also have this safe place to become everything that God's called you to be. And so we're so excited about this episode. We have some of our great friends and
Yay!
actually really a spiritual son and daughter coming on with us today, Drake and Kirstyn Oyao. And so we're going to bring them on in just a minute. But if you could do us a favor, would you share this episode right now? We're going to be talking about spiritual family. What does that look like? Ultimately, a home is where a family resides. And so we're going to be talking about some amazing things, having a conversation. So if you know somebody who will be blessed by this episode, would you share it, repost it right now? Like I'm going to do, I'm going to jump on right now and I'm going to repost it. Also, we want to know in the comments where you are tuning in from. If you could go ahead and put in the comments what city you're watching, what state you're watching from. And we would love to know as we're doing this together at the same
Yes.
time. And
Sharing
so
it
we're going to be
too.
sharing it right now. Also, we want to know where you're watching. You watching from Facebook or YouTube? Siobhan, what is going on?
Hey, Siobhan.
Hey,
Miss you,
what's
girl.
going on? All the way from Maryland.
Hey.
I believe you're in Maryland right now. Is that correct, Siobhan? And so we're going to go ahead and repost it right now. And yes,
Sweet.
here we go. We're posting it to my page.
My page.
Yep. Also,
Hey,
hey, Bree,
Yay.
what is going on?
Hello, Daniel from Virginia. Awesome. Thanks for joining us today.
Yes, Virginia, what is going on? Hello, hello, hello.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Daniel Cox, Siobhan, Maryland. Yeah, buddy. Come on. Well, we're so excited about this episode today, guys. We're going to just jump right into it right now. But remember, a house is a group of people coming together unified because of the structure. But a home is a group of people unified coming together because of one purpose.
It's a good
A
word.
house is made of bricks and beams, but a home is made of hopes and dreams. And we're excited to have this conversation of
Yes,
how
we
to go
are.
from a house to a home. And I really do believe this is the season that the church is in, that we're going from a house to a home.
Yep.
And so we're excited to bring on our guest today. And so let's go ahead and bring it on. What's going on,
Woo.
Drake and Kirstyn?
Hey, guys.
Let me turn your. So
What's
good to see you
up?
guys.
What is up?
What's
Thanks
going
for
on
being
with
on
y'all?
today, guys.
We're so excited to be on with you guys.
Yes, we're so excited.
It's going to be good.
We're gonna have some fun, guys. We're gonna, it's we want to bring a little bit of joy. Oh, I think you guys are having some feedback. I don't know.
I got it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. We want to bring some joy into this episode and have some conversations. Oh, well, we're getting feedback. Uh-oh. Can you guys turn your volume down just a little bit? We're getting some feedback on our end.
Better?
Not your phone, is it?
Yes, let's see. Yep, there we go. Perfect.
Awesome.
Awesome. Part of what we want to talk about, we want to bring some joy to the conversation just because, right now we're living in a time right now where there's a lot of chaos going on, a lot of stuff going on that we know of. It's really hard. Some of the things that are happening in the media. We're still picking up some feedback from you guys. I don't know if there's any way.
Is there any other device you have? Do we have any?
No.
Are you watching it on another
Device.
We did. No, we turned that off.
Huh. All right. Well, either way, we'll just go for it.
Maybe I'll
And
You need to check.
and so we're
Sometimes other
excited.
people hear it.
Yeah. If you're watching the program right now and you're hearing some feedback, let us know. Maybe it's just on our
Can
end.
you comment? Because we just want to
Yeah.
make sure.
But Siobhan says, "What's good, y'all?" Hey, Siobhan. So we just want to have some conversation. We want to talk and have some questions. We're talking about spiritual family. As those who are watching, yeah, they're saying they're getting feedback.
Darn.
No,
I don't know how to.
hold on.
Thank you guys for letting us know about that. We definitely
Yeah.
want to fix that before we continue.
Let me turn the mic. I wish it was much easier.
Let's see if that fixed it.
No.
Nope, that's not fixing it.
Do we need to turn something off?
No, because if we turn it off, we won't be able to hear them. So,
Okay.
picking up
that's
some
not good.
feedback. What's going on with StreamYard today? Can you go back into your audio, Drake?
Gotcha.
And in the settings, it should say what speaker. Make sure you're picking up the right speaker.
Yes, internal. And on speaker, I can try to change it to internal. Maybe that'll help.
Yeah, go ahead and try it.
All right. How's that?
Check. That's better. There we go.
It does sound better.
Oh no! Did it? It's still picking it up. That's weird.
Oh, no fun. No fun.
Uh-oh.
We have one more option. I don't know if this one will work.
Sorry, guys. Thanks for being patient.
Yeah.
Thanks for being patient today. Spiritual family modeled right here. Here we go.
No.
Stuff doesn't always go as planned.
Yes.
Not your phone, is it?
Nope. Phone's not on.
Yeah. My phone is very far away. Is your phone close?
Yeah. I don't know.
Let's see. If there's any more feedback.
It's
Hello?
No, good, right?
Yeah.
Whee!
No fun.
No fun.
That's not cool.
Is that better, guys? If you could comment, let us know if there's still feedback or if it's gone.
There's a little bit.
Go for it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Testing for our audience members.
All right. Is that better?
Yeah, I think that was
better. I think there's a touch of it, but maybe it's better.
It's not bad.
It's
All
not
right,
bad.
thank you.
All right,
Siobhan,
we're gonna
let's
go
just
for
get
it.
into it.
We're going for it.
Anyhow,
Thanks for the
the
feedback.
heads up. Yeah. So
Pun intended.
once again, if you're just joining live, whether on YouTube or on Facebook, we want to know where you guys are tuning in from. Would you go ahead and put in the comments what city, state you are tuning into? They said that they can't hear you, Drake.
Oh boy.
Oh, got you. I know exactly why. So we're good. Yes. All right, we are good to go. I'm sure they can hear me now. I'm sure they can hear me now. Let me know if you can hear me in the chat. That would be great.
Awesome.
I just went back to the original settings. That's all I did.
Daniel Cox is watching in from Facebook. Thanks for watching.
Yes. Should be
Okay.
good.
All right, you guys, we're just going to jump into it. Thank you all for being patient. So those that may be new to the mission or maybe new to who Drake and Kirstyn are, can you just tell us a little bit about yourselves and some of your passions?
Yes. I'll start with myself. For me, my name is Drake Oyao. I'm 26. I encountered Jesus when I was 16 or 15 and a half years old. I was at a youth camp, and it was my first time I'd ever went to any type of church type of thing. I mean, I went a few churches growing up, but that was mainly the first real kind of thing. And Matt was preaching, and it was the first time. It was more than just a message and go home, right? It was a whole encountering God service and miracles, the presence of the Lord that was so tangible, and through even getting a prophetic word, just the whole experience, seeing people who are so just seeing people get healed and just their raw responses. It was like the awe of God was in the room. Like Matt said this many times, like an atheist could walk in the room. It's like God is, and that experience happened for me. It was like, wow, Jesus is real. I'm going to follow him. And so 2 years later, I joined Matt's. They had a school of ministry. I joined that when I was 18 years old. And then a few years in, I started youth pastoring out there. And then Matt had a major transition to come here from the Lord. And around that time, we were getting engaged. And then the Lord began to speak to us to make that transition as well. And so we made that transition. And our first year of marriage was amazing. And then as I got into our second year, they had offered, for us to do youth pastoring. And so we began that journey in January. That's my story.
Awesome.
So a little bit about me. I grew up in Stockton. Stockton's my hometown. I'm 29 years old. I grew up in a Christian home for all my life. I got saved around 7 years old at my school. I went to a Christian private school. And then when I went into college, that's where I met Matt and Des. I don't know if you guys remember this, but at Delta, I went to your guys' I think Carpe Diem movement.
Yep. Campus ministry.
Yeah.
The campus ministry. So that's when I first met you guys. And then I was on my way to study nursing, but God all changed that. And so he put it on my heart to do your guys' school of ministry. So I came back from SoCal, was doing school there. And then, started joining the school of ministry. And that's where I met you guys, and then met this guy over here. And
I still remember, Kirstyn. I still remember our conversation with you in our strawberry house, our very first house upstairs, when you were actually asking us for advice about, hey, I don't know what I'm going to do next. This is where I'm at.
Yep.
And it was such a great conversation. I'm still picking up feedback. I don't know where that's coming from.
And then
Yeah. Let me try it again on this end. Once more.
Yeah, just go to the other one.
Trying to keep moving my phone away. Maybe I have to go across the room.
So it's so interesting. Just how we met. It up.
It's so distracting. I'm so confused.
I don't know.
Someone just asked, did we know Donnie Moore? Actually, funny you ask. We were both led to the Lord by Donnie Moore. Matt,
yes.
Both of us. And my dad was on his board for over 30 years. So we know Donnie very well. He was like a spiritual father to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I get my phone back real quick? She's hiding my phone over here.
No, you cannot.
I want to just see how it's going right now, because we're picking up some feedback and we've never had this
this
issue.
has never happened, y'all. What in
Never
the world?
happened.
There's a worst case scenario where I can just switch to a different device, even though we're wonderfully 12 minutes into our show.
Yeah, no, we're just gonna
That's
have
all
to
right. It just might
roll
be what
with
it
it.
is.
Gotcha. I'm gonna lower it a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's real bad. Oh. I think we should switch.
Man, oh man.
I can join the show off another device as we speak. Go grab my.
Yeah, let me.
What should we do?
This is good. This is because this show is supposed to be so amazing. So you better stay on, because
Maybe put Drake on mute when he's not speaking.
Yeah.
I mean, we could try that. So let's test this.
Let's test this. Is there feedback? We've got Drake on mute. Is there feedback? If you're watching, is there feedback?
Yeah, we don't hear it now. So that was a great idea, Siobhan.
So thanks for the
way to be a solutionary
idea, Siobhan. So Drake, it is on your end.
So you're on mute for just a moment, and we'll unmute you.
Yes.
In just a moment.
The feedback
Awesome.
stopped.
Thank you for that. Okay.
So part of it, Drake, I don't know if you have something going on while you're watching, or if you're just doing it from your computer. Hey, Tanya, what is going on? Sharon Potter,
Hey,
what's
Sharon.
up, girl?
Miss you.
Haha. Some amazing folks are jumping on, and let's see, is that? Yeah. So when I turn you back on, Drake, it does have feedback.
Alrighty.
Wonderful. I can absolutely use my iPhone as well. Maybe that would
I
help.
just don't want to have to reset.
Yeah. What's up, Craig Ferris?
Right.
What is going on? What is going on? Deborah McGraw. Yes, we miss y'all. Congratulations
Hey,
on your guys'
Deborah.
move. Oh,
Excited for you guys.
we got to catch up with you. Craig D. Ferris. I had such a great time last night. Me and Craig did the Facebook Live. Check it out with our great friend Fee. It was amazing. Had so much fun. Can't see the camera. Thank you. What is going on?
This is just like, it's modeling, but things don't always go as planned.
Hey, but
in
what
family.
was the quote you put up yesterday on Facebook? It was so good.
Well, now you're gonna put me on the spot. Now I'm gonna forget. No, it was God is not looking for perfect or polished, but for available, authentic, and available.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is
So we're available, and this
good.
is authentic, y'all.
So
It's
excited.
not polished and it's not perfect.
Deborah, we're so excited about the workshop this Saturday night, the Navigating Season Transition. If you guys want to find out more about it, go to our Facebook page or go to mattandesgonzales.com. We're doing a workshop with our great friend Doug Addison on how to navigate a season of transition.
Fun.
Transition Saturday night. Yes.
Come on. Thanks, Craig.
Let's bring you back on. Can you guys go ahead and talk now, see if we fixed it?
Yes, we are here and here and hoping it works. Yeah, we are here.
We need to test it when we speak because that's when they feedback.
Okay. Let's
Hello.
see. Is there feedback? Yep, there is feedback. Oh boy.
Awesome. I also, just so you know, I did go ahead and join off of my.
You know what we'll do? We'll just mute you when we're talking, and then when you talk, we'll mute ourselves. Yeah. There we go. So we want to ask you guys a question, Drake. Ultimately, we're talking about a home, and we're talking about spiritual family. And one of the things that, for whatever reason, many times in church culture, we understand the aspect of natural parents. But not too many times do we understand the aspect of spiritual parents. We believe that it is very biblical. You have two sides of this pendulum, you guys. You have this side where, people are afraid to talk about, do you have spiritual children? What are spiritual children? Are you a spiritual father? Are you a spiritual mother? And it's almost people are afraid to talk about that because there have been abuses in that. There has been other things of sorts, like, well, what does that mean? Is that a control statement? Like, you're saying you're my spiritual father because you want to control me. But I want to kind of bring a biblical approach to this and talk about our relationship, because we do see you guys, and I know it's mutual. We've talked about this. You guys are spiritual sons and daughters, and just kind of that whole process. It's needed in a home, especially a church home. If we're going to see family done well in a home, there has to be moms and dads, sons and daughters. And it's really the mandate of Malachi 4. And this is the question I want to ask you guys. Malachi 4:10, turning the hearts of the fathers to the sons of the father. It's always been a mandate for our ministry. This has been the mandate. I also believe it's a mandate for New Testament prophetic ministry. And we also see that in Malachi 4:10 that the healing of the land requires that fathers and mothers, sons and daughters connect with each other to bring restoration of relationship, both in the natural and in the spiritual. We also see in 1 Timothy 2, Paul calls Timothy his true son in the faith, right? You see this aspect. Timothy wasn't his genetic son, it was his spiritual son. And there's been such a weird dynamic with this in the church culture we've seen over the years. But when you guys are with us at the gathering and in innovation, we created a culture of family because we acknowledge spiritual fathers and mothers, sons and daughters. With that said, my question to you is, you guys both began your journey with Christ prior to coming to our school. You guys have you guys noticed personally the difference between your experience in church culture and then the difference with, how should I say it, without spiritual parents and spiritual children, then having that experience with family to do life with, and what was that difference? Does that make sense?
That's wonderful. And before we answer that question, do you want to try to do my laptop? I'm already backstage if you want to put me in the show. Is that possible or no? Yes. Go ahead and grab it. Alrighty. Can you hear me? Oh, wonderful.
Let's see. Nope.
Yes.
Shoot.
No,
Yes,
still,
you can hear me, no?
still happening.
Oh, it's still happening?
Yeah, there's still feedback. Well, is there?
I don't know. I don't feel like there should be, because I used this one on our last live stream a couple days ago.
Okay.
All right.
We'll
So
try it.
we'll just go ahead and go. If there's feedback, let us know. If it's better, would you show us in the comments? Make a comment. We want to know if there's any feedback.
So for me, while she's getting the charger, I'll ask the question. answer the question. Yeah. So for me, noticing the difference between spiritual family and not, and you know, first of all, I'm so grateful for Matt and Des in our lives, because they've modeled it in such an amazing way. As we've gone and, you know, been in a lot of different environments, we've been so grateful. But I think for me, it's the difference between competition and family. If you don't have spiritual fathers and mothers in the home, you kind of get orphans. And what happens in an orphan culture, what I mean by spiritual orphans, is like everyone's by themselves. You know, it's because there's not a sense of even in the natural, like if your dad or mom is not around, you kind of have to figure things out by yourself. And it's like nobody's learning from anybody's mistakes, and we're all creating the same mistakes. And not only that, we're all trying to one up each other because nobody's affirming each other, because everyone's trying to get the pastor. You know, there's so many different things, but fathers and mothers actually are like it's the nature of God. That's who he is to us.
Yeah.
And it's how we build a healthy culture, because it's the mothers and fathers. The whole heart of that is that, you know, their ceiling is our floor. So there's a sense of a pushing, a preferring one another, you know, you guys are more important than we are. Like it's a sense of pushing, and that creates a culture where everyone's gifts are valued. And personally, for me, if I didn't have, when you have spiritual mothers and fathers, then you really get really good brothers and sisters. And I mean, I don't know if this is kind of getting off, but like some of my friendships, I've gotten breakthroughs off of my friends, my brothers, right? From my mentors, my spiritual fathers and mothers.
Yep.
And if I didn't value that, then I would have never gotten the breakthroughs, you know? And so I think, so I had to fight for tough conversations, tough moments where we had a disconnection, but I still honored, I still fought through it, because the gold is on the other side. And that's why anything worth value costs.
It's good.
I love it. Love it. What about you, Kirstyn?
I think personally for me, having spiritual mothers and fathers, it brings like, it's less about just you as an individual, but you're a part of a whole body. And that's what spiritual mothers and fathers do, is that everyone is celebrated. Everyone has a part to play. They're not just like, oh, it's just me and my Christian walk. I'm a part of this bigger thing than myself.
Yeah,
that's good.
You know, I love what you guys are saying, because I feel like, you know, ultimately this show is called From a House to a Home. And in a home, in the natural, you have parents, you have a father and a mother, you have kids that are being raised. And I feel like, you know, the actual picture is also in a spiritual house. We have fathers and mothers. Now, I want to say plural, because I believe a healthy home has fathers and mothers, not just one father, not just one mother, but, you know, sons and daughters have to grow up to become fathers and mothers.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I know you guys were part of in Stockton, was that when we created a culture, we created a family culture with the whole concept of, you know, there's fathers and mothers in the house, and there's sons and daughters. And then there's even a deeper aspect of when a father and mother is actually fathering, mothering spiritual sons and daughters. So, and there's more and a deeper connection. And that's some of the things that happen with you guys, you know, and you know, there's so much I can say about this, because this happens over time. Like one of the things I like to say is that, you know, my kids, right, Hayden, Peyton, Riley, Gavin, I don't have to tell them I'm their father.
Yeah.
If I have to tell them I'm their father, I'm doing something wrong.
That's good. It's true.
Okay. Father and mothering is known over time by fruit, by connection, by relationship, not by title and not by demand. And I think that's where the actual perversion of it started to go off, is that as a means of manipulation and control. Hey, I'm your spiritual father.
Yeah.
I'm your spiritual mother. You know, you're my, you know, and it's either to make us feel good about ourselves, about our ministry, that we have a whole bunch of sons and daughters. You know, that's used in ministry. I got a bunch of sons and daughters, but you don't even talk to them. And here's the other thing: if they're really your sons and daughters, then where's the inheritance?
True.
You want sons and daughters by name, but you don't want to give a legacy and inheritance. And we see that. We see that in church culture, in ministry culture.
And then when there's nothing, people want to step away and disconnect.
Oh,
you know,
come on.
Yeah. And I think too, like we didn't, like Matt said, we didn't presume a position in anyone's life to be that. You know, it's built over time, and we couldn't father and mother all the people that were coming to our school and coming to our church.
Yeah.
We shouldn't, because we can't
No.
father and mother that many people.
No.
But we could pastor people, we could influence people, we could lead people. But to father and mother, that's a whole nother level of intimacy and commitment and relationship. So I had a question for you guys. So a lot of times I think it's easier for us to recognize a father and a mother, you know, spiritually. Maybe, you know, there's certain attributes that can be kind of evident in that role. But what do you see the role of a son or a daughter playing in regards to their influence in a spiritual parent's life?
That's good.
Yeah. You know, I think for me, I feel like some of the greatest way you can impact a spiritual mother and father is just by stewarding your own life well. I think for me, it is actually just taking care of what you need to take care of, you know, loving God, and just knowing that your life lived out is gonna honor them. You know, I think their greatest goal is to see you do well. And so if you almost view it as, man, you have so many people behind you, you just let that support just motivate you and also available for you if you have, you know, tough times. But I just think a life that's full of God, lived out, you know, in an honest way is the greatest thing you can do for a mom or father.
That's awesome.
Come on.
I took your answer.
Kirstyn, I know
That's
you're
all right.
paying.
Just repeat
I
it.
know you're paying.
I'm gonna just
Well,
repeat.
repeat it in your own way.
No. I mean, I think as a role of a spiritual daughter, I think is, I don't know, for me. Say the question again. Sorry, I got
That's all right. No, I just was saying sometimes it's easier to recognize, like, oh, they're a father. They really have a father's heart, or they really have a mother's heart. But sometimes we forget our role as sons and daughters. You know, so what do you see the role of a son or daughter playing in their spiritual parents' lives? Like we can say, oh, as a mother, as a father, this is my role in my kids' lives. But as the son or daughter, what do you feel like is your role in the other way around, if that makes sense?
I think for me is to be an encouragement, because sometimes we think fathers and mothers, they're encouraging us as sons and daughters, but I get to be an encouragement to my spiritual mother and father, and I get to kind of encourage them in, you know, just different areas, or just be there for them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Good. Yeah, I think I could see as a lot of sons and daughters, they could almost silence their own voice because they feel like they don't have anything to say. And so it's like, no, you actually do have something to say. Sometimes your encouragement is going to mean the most to. Yeah, that's really
absolutely. That's so
mothers
good.
And fathers also need that as well.
Yeah.
You know, I think the true aspect of spiritual mom and dads, because I'm hearing you guys talking, and I'm just thinking about just some of the things that we created culturally when we were in Stockton together, was that, you know, the true purpose of a spiritual parents is to have is serve as a covering over, a protection, but a foundation under. And true spiritual parenting isn't control, it's laying down.
Yeah.
It's laying down your life. It's laying down things to build a foundation for the next generation, for spiritual sons and daughters. And what I've seen model in church is that it hasn't necessarily been that. And that's why people have it's almost like if you go to a bad dentist, you don't stop going to a dentist. You find a better one. Yeah. But many times in church culture, when we experience something negative, we just want to throw it out.
Yeah.
Like even scripture, like, messed up with prophecy. I don't want to do prophecy anymore. Throw it out. And it's like we throw things out, even if it's a truth, even if it's a foundation, and not understanding like what's the healthy version of this looks like. Let's go into the word.
Yeah.
Timothy and Paul had a father and son, spiritual father and son relationship. What did that look like? And I still feel like that is for today. That was something that we modeled for a house to be a home and to have family. We need to recognize that, hey, there are fathers and mothers in the house. And it's all right to say that. It's like we're afraid to mention that sometimes. Yeah. We're afraid to use those titles. And I understand because there have been abuse in the past. We've seen certain things, but we shouldn't be afraid to use that language. We're not hoarding. We're saying we're laying down our life. We're wanting to give an inheritance and a legacy. And so it's not something that's negative. It's actually a positive, and it requires a lot more work.
Yeah.
It's not just by name.
And you know what? One thing you said, Drake, and it's so blessed my heart, is you talked about how having this culture, this family culture, it was more than just about fathers, mothers, and sons and daughters. Our ability to model that and create the culture, it affects more than just the fathers and mothers and sons and daughters. It affects now the siblings, right? And you said that your relationship with your brothers and sisters were blessed because of that as well. And I know we're learning that even in our own house, with our kids, and as they grow up and seeing their dynamics and their relationships, and they still sometimes want to come to us, but as our job as parents, when like they're having conflict, there's times when they need to come to mom and dad, their age, they need help in a situation. But our job is not just to, okay, you come over here and you come over there and we're going to discipline you over here and discipline you over there. Yeah. No, like let's resolve this together so you can learn how to do that together, so at some point you're not even going to need us to help you with this conflict. Yeah. You're going to know how to do it yourself. Yeah. And so ultimately that is another fruit of this family culture we're talking about.
And if you're just joining on, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube and you're just joining the conversation, put in the comments. We want to know where you're tuning in from, what city, what state. Also, if you'd repost this right now on social media, if you're watching on Facebook, I see my great friend AJ Osberg. What's going on all the way from the East Coast? Love that guy. One of the things that we're talking about right now, if you're just joining the conversation, we're talking about spiritual family and the relational aspect of spiritual fathers and sons, daughters and mothers. And one of the things I love that we're including in this conversation, Drake and Kirstyn, I think sometimes as fathers and mothers, we don't mature without spiritual sons and daughters.
Yep.
And I think people don't, when we don't have that concept. I would say this, in the natural, you can't choose your parents.
Yeah.
Right. You get in parents. I like to say it this way: you get your parents through inheritance, but in spiritual family, you get your parents through experience.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, it's over time of building a relationship experientially that you begin to realize who your spiritual parents are. Ultimately, Paul tells Timothy, hey, I birthed you in the kingdom. So I do believe there's an aspect of spiritual parenting by those that we give birth to in the kingdom, that we help through the salvation experience. But I also believe there are other ones over time that it starts as a mentorship. Mm-hmm. I believe spiritual mom and dads, it can start as a mentoring relationship, but eventually becomes a father and mother relationship. There's a difference in that. And, one of the things I look for, and it's always been a foundation, actually me and Des, we kind of look for that, when we're going to take our relationship to another level outside of mentoring, is that, I'm looking for the fresh pursuit and passion within a spiritual son and daughter. There's a pursuit. They're pursuing you. There's a healthy pursuit. They're pursuing you because they don't want something from you. They want your heart. I always say it this way: an orphan always wants what's in your hand, but a son and daughter wants what's in your heart. And so there's a pursuit of something in your heart. There's a pursuit and there's a passion, there's a hunger, because you have to know how to invest your time, right? Invest your time. And we've seen that in you guys. You guys were hungry. You guys were passionate. You were pursuing, and it started off as a mentorship because through the school and just through our relationship, but it went to another level. So this leads me to my next question for you. And if you guys have any questions, go ahead and put it in the comments. We'd love to hear. I know Craig Ferris, you had a question, and I'm not sure if I'm understanding it. So can you reword that for me? or give me some more insight. You said, can you speak to the difference between the difference in obedience and honor with natural parents and spiritual parents? If you can maybe put in the comments or text me. I'm not sure if I'm understanding that question fully. AJ says this: training young ones to be powerful people, so when they grow up, they will not depart from those values. Come on. My question to you guys is this: what do you feel the next generation is looking for with spiritual or church leaders in life?
I think,
Yeah.
I think they want authenticity
Yeah.
and vulnerability, and to be able to see you not just on a stage, but to be able to really see you. I think that's what they really want. Like that you're not just, sometimes we can see people as like they're perfect, they have it all together, but to know, like, because I look at you, Matt, and doesn't, like, you share your life, the ups and the downs, and I've learned as much from the the times that were tough, in your lives, as much as your guys' victories. And I think that just you guys showing your vulnerability and just being real and honest, I think people appreciate that.
Thank you.
That's great. I think, as I'm forgetting the question. I'm like swamped. What do people look for in?
So the question is, what is the next generation? Your generation. We're trying to see a gap bridged right now. We're at the greatest turning point in the history of the church right now, where there is a divide between generations. Their statistics are saying your generation and the generation after you are leaving church. They don't want to have to do anything with church. We're trying to bridge that gap. And my question in that concept is, what is your generation looking for in church leadership and spiritual leadership? What do you guys want? Kirstyn answered authenticity and vulnerability. What would be your answer?
I think for so long, the church has had this, for a lot of younger people, had this reputation to where it's like, there's a little bit of fakeness, or you say one thing and you mean another. And, it's hurt a lot of people. And I think, and it's caused a lot of people hesitancy. So I think when it comes to connecting with people, to make sure when you're in church and you're saying that you want to connect with someone that you mean those words. I think sometimes it's easy to say empty words because, I heard this meme of every adult relationship is like, hey, we'll hang out soon. You never hang out. Right. But it's so important that you follow up with your words. And then in the midst of that, because I think we've almost lost the value of our word in just church relationships. It's just become like, oh, you, and then we just see you on a Sunday to Sunday basis, and there's not much actually going on. So I think what the next generation is looking for is people who actually want, and that's okay if you can't talk to 25 people. You just have to give yourself that permission. Hey, I'm not going to be able to connect with everybody in this church. And that's why we're a body, and you're not supposed to be able to connect, even though you're the most, outgoing. You got to be intentional with your heart. Who do I feel is highlighted in this season? And I think when we can steward our own hearts and be okay that I may upset some people because I might not be as connected to them, you're going to connect with the people you need to the most. And those relationships are going to impact that person, and that person will be able to impact their people. So I think there's just a sense of taking the responsibility of connecting with the people that you say you will and doing that. And then also, of course, everything Kirstyn's saying, I think they're just looking for, when you hold back as a leader, if you have a fear of failure, or if you have different things, you're gonna hold back. And I think this generation is like, man, we want your failures just as much as we want your successes.
Come on.
And it's so true. They just want to be told the truth. Like I've talked to a lot of my youth recently, and it's so crazy. They're just like, we've had so many conversations of we would rather you tell me the truth than you tell me something else. And personally, going into the school ministry with Matt, he was this superstar in my mind, right? So I've learned to only put Jesus on a pedestal, right?
Come on.
But I've learned through his life, because I've seen a lot of his successes. I've also seen, like, man, things that, he didn't do this perfectly, or he didn't say that perfectly. and I've actually learned, or just his own life, his struggles, and I've learned, and it actually, by me learning his struggles, I actually was almost able to really value his victories in a more way. Like, wow, look at him. He's done this, this, and that. And I think everyone's empowered when everyone feels like, oh, you did it, I can do it too. And so just sharing what's on your heart, you know, that's the most powerful thing you can do as we try to progress forward, you know, together.
So good.
So
I love what AJ says. He says, plus, I think there's a difference between transparency and vulnerability. Spiritual parents should have developed trust to be able to be vulnerable in front of.
Yeah.
You know, I love what both of you guys are saying, because I think there is this aspect, and it's a facade, it's a mask that we wear many times, that we're afraid for others to see our weakness. And as spiritual parents, but I would even go farther beyond spiritual, but even in church as leaders, we can't be afraid of that. Ultimately, I know there's levels of vulnerability.
Yeah.
There is. There's no vulnerability. At the same time, I do believe that in the concept of the relationship that we're talking about, you know, one of the things that we did, we tried really hard, is not to hide who we are, that we want you to see everything, our not just our victories, our and our strengths, but our failures.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a great story of, you know, when we were just early in our relationship, and Drake saw one of my failures when we were playing a video game together, and I was losing. I got so frustrated, and I launched out at him, and he's like, "Whoa, what's going on?"
Talk about some of the two most competitive guys right here. Get them
You know,
together.
and it's an interesting dynamic, because both me and Drake are so competitive, but it was in that moment I know things begin to change. He was just like, "Whoa, you launched out on me." But I think it's those moments that when we don't allow it to separate us, it brings us closer. And I recognized what I did wrong. And I don't know if it was that day or the next day, I called you and just said, "Hey man, I apologize." I love AJ. Madden can be intense. It actually was FIFA, but we do play Madden.
For me, it's pretty easy most of the time.
You know, but to come and humble myself and just say, "Hey man, you know, I blew it. I know you look up to me, and you know we have this relationship, but I blew it. Like, I shouldn't have acted that way."
Matt has done that. Just, I know you won't say this, but you've done that on the smallest of things, you know. And so I think that's just another key of a spiritual parent, just to, if you feel something, to over communicate, especially to somebody that you are leading, because it just makes the person know, hey, I didn't even feel that way, but wow, like the fact that he called and did that, he didn't need to do that. There's just an emotional connection that I think develops trust.
Yeah. You know, there's another aspect of, you know, spiritual parenting that I wanted to bring up, and it might,
I love this conversation.
A little bit
this has been
saucy
good
for a minute.
Come
okay.
on.
So according to the Bible, right, this is not just us, it's out of Hebrews 12:7. It talks about that, you know, as parents, as leaders, that correction is part of that relationship, right? With sons and daughters, spiritual or natural. And so we would love for you guys to maybe share, if you can think of a story or two, how that played a role and how it affected your walk with Christ, and how did it affect your relationships, either with us or with other people. Because I think this is the part that scares people. This is the part that, oh, I touched the stove, it was hot, I'm not doing that again. It's the part where when it's done wrong, it messes a lot of people up, right? So,
and I would say this, you know, this is the disconnect from, I believe, fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters, is that, you know, sons and daughters are wanting vulnerability and trust and honesty from spiritual fathers and mothers, but then spiritual fathers and mothers are wanting the ability to bring some correction and discipline to sons and daughters, because they see who they are, and if they can just bring a little bit, once again, you know, correction and discipline it's not punishment,
right?
Wow.
You know, and actually what the scripture Des just read, it said this is actually one of the requirements of your sonship. This is how we know we're sons and daughters for Christ, is that we allow him to discipline us. So we'd love to hear from you guys on that.
Yeah, you know, I know this has been said many times, but an orphan will view discipline as punishment, but a son will view it as an upgrade. I'll say it again, orphan. But it's not. And I think the difference between the word spiritual orphan is that you actually where you're looking for love and fulfillment is in people's opinions rather than the Father's heart. And that's the very thing. I'm going to share my struggle. You know, when I joined the school of ministry, for a long time, I needed Matt's approval from me. I even one time told myself this, man, I am not going to date Kirstyn unless I have Matt's approval and Dez's approval. And it felt so righteous. It felt like, man, I am so spiritual. But I actually positioned myself for torment because I was identified, like I was letting you guys tell me, like my sense of value was found in what your guys' thoughts were instead of God's. And so I think it all starts with just your heart posture that you have to know when you come into these relationships. That number one, it's the only man that can fulfill your heart is Jesus Christ. He's the one. So when you step into these questions or these conversations, you understand that when they're speaking to you, they are adding to your experience with Jesus. They are, you have to give them the benefit of the doubt. Matt's done a message before on the word foreboding, which is like a very good thing. And sometimes we forebode them, or we assume. Foreboding means to like view in the future as something's going to happen really negative. But we just have to understand, like, I guess for my whole experience was I realized, oh my gosh, my identity is in God and his love for me. I don't need Matt to tell me how awesome I am. So because of that, I was able to let Matt tell me anything. And everything he said, it actually charged me. And if it cut me deep, but it actually caused me life to grow inside of me.
Come on.
It was easier for me to give him the benefit of the doubt because my heart was filled by Jesus, and Matt came in as like an editor. That's almost like the best way I've heard it. A spiritual mother and father is like an editor in your book, and I think when you have your heart postured in the Lord, spiritual mothers and fathers can just make the impact that they were made to make. But when you put your sense of value in them, that's where you have bad experiences. But that's not on them. That's on you because you decided to put your sense of value in the person and not Jesus. And so that's good.
Yeah. Man, you share it all.
For me, you go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think when I've had, Matt, we've had conversations when you've shared, you were honest with me with some things, and it cut deep. And I was like, I don't know, but I realized like your heart for me, like you're not saying this to hurt me. You're saying this because you care and love me. And so that changed my perspective rather than being like, oh man, that hurts and I'm just going to sulk. Like it was a challenge to grow and mature because I needed that. And I appreciated your honesty with me.
Wow. Kirstyn, cool. You probably said right now, probably one of the most game changer statements right now that I hope people are hearing this right now. Like this is like, if you're going to quote something, listen to this. I love what you just said right now, because what you said is that unless love is demonstrated, correction is not going to be received.
Yeah.
And I think many times in our culture, we want to bring correction. We want to bring correction to people relationally without first demonstrating our love.
Yeah.
And like, unless your love's demonstrated, unless the person sees the love you have for them, then why should they take your correction? Because once again, it's the model that Christ first loved us, right? He loved us.
Yeah.
He demonstrated his love for us. And then he speaks, because there's a process of that. And I see it so many times in leadership structures that you want to bring correction without demonstrated love. And love has to be demonstrated first. I love what AJ said, codependency rather than being empowered to make choices. Yep. And that's what we're talking about. AJ, that's the language I love right now, is that spiritual parenting, it has to be not a codependency. It has to be an empowering to make choices.
Right. And that's so good, because, you guys have heard us say, and probably a lot of other people say it too, but like our goal is that you surpass us, like far beyond. You do what greater things we've ever thought of and done in our lives. And so many leaders, unfortunately, they are threatened by that.
They're
And
lid.
they're the lid, and you're not supposed to pass me because I'm the father, I'm the mother. And so we got, and that all comes back to the heart of love. Like, out of the place of love, we want you to do greater things.
Yeah.
You know, it's good.
And it's happening.
Yep.
Like, it's a perfect segue to the next question. You know, I'm actually going to let's see. I know we're gonna. I'm gonna jump forward to another question. You know, there's always transitions in relationships.
Yeah.
And as fathers and mothers, sons and daughters becoming mature, being here in Vacaville, now you guys have come into your own role as leaders. Where in our dynamic, you guys were once sons and daughters, but now you're leaders. And there's been a transition in just who you guys are, your maturity and your identity, but also your role. You know, and this is natural. This is the healthiest, what it looks like in this type of relationship. And how would you describe the transition from being under a father and mother leading to now running alongside them?
Feels great.
Come on.
It feels like how I picture it is like, you know, in the natural, your child grows up and becomes an adult, and you have this friendship, and you guys can have a dialogue and be able to just share life together in a sense of like at the same sort of level, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think for me, I think it's so amazing, and I think on this opposite side, it's like it's also, you know, anything great comes with, you know, responsibility, and so I think there is a sense of like as you begin to, and I've had this even in friendships and people that I feel like I started by mentoring, they became friends and began to do greater things than I did, you know, so I've kind of had somewhat of an experience with that. And I think there's just first of all, everything starts with honor and gratitude and like always preferring one another, because this is never about my kingdom. This is about Jesus's and us cheering each other on.
Yeah.
But I just think personally, my thoughts is, what does that transition look like? I just think it's understanding, hey, like, you know, I make more of an impact than I may think I do. And so I need to be honoring and responsible with my actions, and just know, like, I think the biggest lesson I've learned in my life is that my actions impact other people. And so especially with a leader, and you begin to they begin to give you that trust, it's just important to know that you know, that there's a responsibility with it, but there's also a great joy. It's kind of, hopefully that answers the question.
No, that's good.
You know, I think, you know, everything you're saying. I mean, this is just, if we could just be vulnerable from a perspective of a leader and a father, if you have any insecurities, they're going to manifest, especially when you begin to have sons and daughters that start just taking off and blooming. And I think that's the conversation sometimes we don't have, is that any insecurities in me will manifest. If I don't deal with them, then those insecurities now become your lid. When I become, rather than your champion, I become your worst enemy. And I think that's what we've seen over the years. And I mean, even personally, I know early on in the Lord, you know, speaking to me to mature as a father, before, you know, I became a spiritual father before I became a natural father. And because of the campus ministry and some things, so I learned how to spiritually father before even naturally fathering. And one of the things I did, I wasn't good at it. I did it wrong. I made a lot of mistakes. I had insecurities. When you start seeing people rise up and like you know, those insecurities, if not dealt with, it brings out the worst in you. I mean, it just brings out the worst in you. And it happened. And I think that's part of the thing, is that if we're going to do this right and create a home, we have to champion. And I'm even learning that right now. If I could just be vulnerable, those who are watching, I'm learning. And you know, let's just be right now. We're going to open this up.
Let's open it up.
No, we're talking about sons and daughters, but there's even a greater aspect that's facing us right now, and that's the champion of women in ministry and in church culture. And the problem is, there are so many women out there that I'm becoming aware of right now that here, and can we change the language? Women don't need to be empowered. Like to tell a woman in church culture that you're empowering them means that you're recognizing their power that they already had, and that you're gonna like, no. They need to be championed.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm learning this.
It communicates that you have the power and we don't, so you need to give it to us. That's what it communicates.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
How do you feel about that, Kirstyn? Because I want to hear what you and Des have to think about that. Because I know, I'll just be transparent.
Oh, you just
I've had to learn. No, I feel like there's life we need to go out. I've had to learn, I'm a strong leader, strong person. I've had to learn how to re-engage for us to be individually powerful together. And this has a lot to do even with spiritual parenting. Yeah. Because if not, the DNA of the mom and the dad is going to be passed on because only one's doing everything.
That's a great
and so I love to hear from you and Des on that. And Drake, we're just going to shut up.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Do you want me to go first?
Go ahead.
So I feel like, first of all, we always emphasize what we value, right? And so I think part of it, it's not, I don't sit back and be like, well, I'm a woman, I'm not being heard, so I blame him and him and him. No. That's not going to get us anywhere. And that's actually going to make the situation worse. I think part of it is we have emphasized the nature of the father a lot in church, and that's great. We need to do that. But I don't think we've also equally emphasized the role of the Holy Spirit, and we oftentimes relate to God the Father, but not a lot of us in the church that I've seen can relate equally to the Holy Spirit. And, it's like the Holy Spirit oftentimes is the mothering side of God's nature. And so if we saw both of them equally as important and valuable, and, sometimes it just comes across, I mean, I don't want to put any words in anyone's mouth, but sometimes it comes across that mothering is a weaker version of, the equation. And that's just not truth. And we have to begin to change our language to be able to value them equally. And that's not just from men. That's also from our own mouths as women and as leaders. We have to do that. We can't rely, women, I'm talking to you for a minute. We can't rely on men to clean up all the messes that we have continued to make ourselves. Yeah. We have to be a part of the equation. And the reconciliation here is not going to come from just one side. It's going to come, like you said, Drake, it's going to come when honor is present. That is when the reconciliation, the restitution is going to come when when it flows out of honor for one another and preferring one another. I mean, this flows into so many different relationships, but it's true,
We're getting comments like, come on, stirred people. What about you, Kirstyn?
So Kirstyn, what do you got? I want to hear you.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think for me, I have to understand that God's empowered me, not males or not even my husband. It's God who's empowered me. And I think Matt and Des, you guys have modeled that because I feel empowered. I was, worship pastoring and you guys empowered me. I didn't feel like I was like less than, like I had the same equal amount of voice.
Yes.
I didn't feel constricted. I didn't feel, so I think that's building a culture within that family that not just, someone who could be very vocal and loud and charismatic, but sometimes even for me, I'm like an introvert. I'm super, quiet and everything, but that doesn't mean that I'm less powerful than someone who's,
That's good.
Yeah.
So,
and I should shut up, right? But it's like Matt said this lately, like if you treat the church only as like almost like purely business focused mindset, you're going to only value the people who can progress the business faster. So the salesmen or different people, or sometimes they can go into that. But if you actually realize that like these like women or men, all of us, it's that context though, is like, man, like I value there's a nature of God that's released through the women and through different giftings that they have. But if we have a value system where we just want things to grow faster and this thing, we're going to miss some of the nature of God that we may need for our lives, and which is why maybe we're not getting healing in some areas.
Yep.
Yeah. And can I just say one thing?
No, hey, you got the mic. Go for it.
I feel it's really, really, really important that we also do not say the mothers need to mother the daughters and the fathers need to father the sons. Like, I really feel like there needs to be, like, sons need mothers, daughters need fathers, and vice versa. We cannot just, oh, that's your job, you're the man, you can relate, so you go and father those boys over there. And that's just causing the divide to grow even greater and greater and greater. And I just feel like,
anyway. I mean, no, but I think this is good. Isn't this the power of the gospel?
Yeah.
That we were orphans and we were adopted in the family. And know what the power of the gospel is that you could have been raised up in the most dysfunctional, messed up family, but now you get adopted into his family. And if we don't have healthy sons and daughters, spiritual moms and fathers, then we are pretty much not demonstrating the fullness of the gospel, because it's being adopted into family. It's being adopted into something so powerful. It doesn't matter what you experience. It doesn't matter what family you experienced in the past. You may have not had a mom. You may have not had a dad. You may have had a jacked up family. But the truth is, when you come into his family, you get adopted not only by God becoming your father, but now you have mothers and fathers within church that can kind and be the practical model of what was missed in your life. And now there's a redemption. Now this is God's redemption of time, is that what the enemy meant to make you a victim of, you now become a victor, because now you have what you lost and no time is lost because you gained it. And that's why we're so Ooh.
Good, man.
Oh,
yeah.
That's so good.
Okay. That's the good news.
I have one more question on that line, and I want to hear it from you guys. Like, I know there's so many people, because we've heard this question from a lot of people, that there are people that they're like, okay, that all sounds awesome. That sounds great. I have been praying and looking for spiritual parents in my life, and I just don't even know where to start. And matter of fact, I tried and I got hurt. I got rejected. So how am I supposed to move forward? And, obviously God can make up for all of that. But what advice would you give that person that says, you know what, I really desire that, but I don't even know where to start?
Yeah. That's a great question.
For me, I would just say, is to know that someone may hurt you, but the greatest thing that's kept my heart from offense for so long is like Jesus. The greatest injustice of all time was him nailed on a cross when he did nothing.
Come on.
And what was his response? What was Jesus' response, our leader, as he looks down at them? Forgive them, Father, for they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
What is he saying? Forgive them, Father. They don't see right. If they just knew who they were, they wouldn't do that. If they just knew who they were, they wouldn't do that. And so that truth has kept my heart, and forever will keep my heart from offense, because it tells me if this person knew their identity more perfectly like Jesus, man, they wouldn't treat me that way. So it actually turns it into a prayer, turns it into compassion, turns it into God, there must be something incomplete that you'd love to complete in their heart. So I think the first thing you have to do is understand that, if you have an offense, that it's on you. You know what I'm saying? They could have done something wrong, and it's totally validated, but that should actually show you that there's something in their experience with Christ that they need to experience. Right.
Good.
And so, and then with that is just practically is to just begin to create those connections with the people that you feel, but just have no expectations, and of course, after a couple connections, then you can begin to vocalize and share your heart. Like, hey, I like this to grow, and but let it just naturally happen. There's an intentionality, but there's also no expectation of how this person is supposed to react. So in time spent together, trust will build as you communicate.
Yeah. Hey, Kirstyn, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
This will probably be the last question we have, because I know our time has just gone by so fast. And then I don't know if Drake, you want to add into it, feel free, but I want to ask you this, Kirstyn. How do spiritual sons and daughters approach their spiritual fathers and mothers if they disagree or if they've been hurt by them?
I think first talk to Holy Spirit.
Come on.
And always approach it with honor and grace, because
that's good.
Oftentimes it's not their intention to hurt you, and they may have said something that triggered something in your heart. And so if it's first knowing that they love and care about you, and being able to say, to address, like, hey, I was hurt, you said something, or whatever it is, and this is how it made me feel. I know that wasn't your heart, but I just wanted to get clarity and just express, or just hear your heart on that.
I love that.
Because it hurt me, or
I love that. So basically, what I love that you're saying is that you don't approach them by telling them what they did wrong, but telling them how it affected you.
Yes.
Ooh, that's fire.
Rather than pointing the finger, like, you did this. No, you just say, hey, the other day something happened. I just wanted to, share my heart, that this is how I felt. And I just kind of wanted to hear your thoughts on it. And
that's good. Joyce Solomon's chiming. I love this. Sometimes the generation divide can be an issue. I know that I've learned more by those younger than me. Wow. And we've learned so much from you, Joyce. Trust us. Oh, this is so good. Guys, this has been an amazing conversation. I mean, there's another question I wanted to ask, because maybe we can do another episode on this, but like, we're both multi-ethnic couples, right?
Yep.
I'm Hispanic, Desi's Caucasian, Drake, you're Caucasian.
He's more than that.
Oh, half white,
Kirstyn, you're Filipino, and there's so much racism going on. It's been brought to light because of media.
Yeah.
So much anger, pain, and hurt right now. People want answers, and I believe we, the church, are supposed to be in the forefront of bringing solutions. And I mean, this would be a good conversation to have on another episode. Have you guys on? I would love to address this, like the whole racism, how this affects also church. What are some answers that we can give the world? Because justice in the kingdom isn't revenge; it's mercy. It's forgiveness. And so, how do we address that? Even though there are some real pains and hurt, and I don't know if you guys, but I know early on in my walk in church, I experienced racism from church leaders. And so, I think one of the things that helped me, and Des, one of the things that helped me was having Des in my life. I mean, she is just giving so much wisdom, and she's just like, I'll say it here, sometimes people see, because I have a loud voice, many times people see me, but they don't realize the actually who I am is because of Des. All the hard work, everything she does. A lot of times I know, but a lot of times I get the credit for what you've done. And it really has been her. And so I acknowledge that and want people to know that, like, man, she's not a behind the scenes type person. She is, And so I'm excited.
No, and I know for us, our 5-second thought on that whole, it's this incredibly sad situation, but is just that I think it's hard. You can't change the world off of social media, but I think for me, the most practical thing I can do is be as intentional as possible in any conversation. If things are said that don't need to be said, to speak up and to say, hey, that's not okay. And I think that's the only real practical way for me on an everyday basis I can live to make a difference,
Good. Well, hey guys, how can people continue to follow you?
We're mainly just Instagram and Facebookers. So, Drake Oyao.
Follow him. I'm barely on.
We're not on as much. We're gonna put stuff out sooner.
I don't really use social media that much.
But our names, you can find us on our names.
And then Kirstyn, you also have a business. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I'm a private piano instructor. I teach mainly in Stockton, but I've been doing online during this crazy time. It's been good. So you can follow. I have a Facebook page. It's called Key Waves Music Lessons. I post some stuff on there, what's happening in my piano studio. So it's great.
Awesome. So if parents wanted to get a hold of you to do some training, or there's people watching this, whether live or the replay, how can they reach out to you to possibly look at your training and get involved in that?
I would go to my Facebook page. You can message me on there. I think my number is also on there as well. So.
Okay. Will you do me a favor when we get off? Can you put your Facebook page in the comments so people can go if they want to find out how they could get in contact with you?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, guys, we're going to do another episode. This has been so much
Thanks,
fun.
guys, for being on.
And thanks for being on, y'all.
Yay.
Love you guys. Well, guys, yeah.
Awesome.
Hey, you guys, thank you for tuning in, whether you're watching live or the replay from my house to home today. This has been fun.
It's been awesome. And thank you for being patient with all the technical stuff. So remember, guys, a house is made of bricks and beams, but a home is made of hopes and dreams. Home is where love resides, memories are created, a place where you belong, and joy never ends.
See you next week.
See you next time.